welcome to Screenshots. Juan and I are in Cincinnati. Juan, what do we have for our viewers today?
Okay, we're going to talk about the Midwesterns that are happening this weekend that we're here for. We are going to play in the 90s. And then
We're not going to talk about the 90s.
But we're not going to talk about the 90s. We're just going to talk about the open draw and the Western New England tournament that is happening this weekend as well. The best teams in the country are playing. Unfortunately, not all the teams in the same draw, but everybody's playing this weekend in different locations, but it's going to be a fun weekend of paddle.
You don't think our viewers would appreciate a preview of the 90s tomorrow?
I don't think so, especially because you're #1 seed.
It doesn't say much for the tournament,
It doesn't say much for it.
Okay, we'll be right back with our previews. Okay, Juan, on Saturday, the 2015 Midwesterns.
Yes.
Along with Longmeadow, the first two big tournaments of the new year. It's supposed to be very cold. You want to talk a little bit about how cold weather impacts play?
Well, I think it benefits the hard-hitting teams. Even though the ball bounces a lot lower, it's much harder to volley the hard shots. So the ball doesn't bounce off the wire so much. But overall, it's harder to spin the ball. The ball doesn't break as much. And the top spin ground strokes are not as effective as they are in the warm weather, where the ball bounces off your paddle and tends to go out. So
yeah, for me the big issue is the net. The net is just, the cooler the weather, the more valuable the net is.
The strategy is definitely different.
How will you play differently?
I like actually better warm weather paddle. I think it plays more tennis-like. But usually by this time of the year, I struggle with my game, and it's happening again. But hopefully this weekend will be different.
Well, you've never played this tournament with a French partner before, so
never.
All bets are off.
Yeah.
Okay. Next interesting matchup is Croker and
Trevor
Spracklin versus Doug Jones and Thaddeus Reed.
I think that's going to be a very good match. I think that Trevor Spracklin and Tommy Crocker are going to win that match. They have a lot more firepower, even though Thaddeus Reed is very tricky. And Doug Jones can hit the ball.
Doug Jones can hit the ball
and can hit you with the ball too.
Fortunately, has not, but sometimes I'm worried about that.
But I think Trevor and Tommy are a very solid team, and they're going to give a lot of teams big headaches this weekend.
So next 32 we're going to talk about is Witskin and Engel versus McInerney and Rogers.
Yes, that's a hard to predict match. I think that the best player on that court is Graham McInerney. He's been playing great.
Wow, that's a big statement. I think Witskin made the quarters of nationals 2 years ago.
2 years ago. I'm talking about today. Graham McInerney is the best player on that court. Graham is playing a lot of paddle. He travels. I mean, he's probably the #1 fan of the sport. He travels everywhere. And
Dogs.
I love that attitude. And he's a great tennis player, and that's going to help him. I think he's going to be the best player on the court. That said, Matt Rogers is a good player too. So I think I will give Graham and Rogers the edge on that match, even though Engel and Witskin are the favorites in paper.
I like Engel and Witskin. They played for my Region 8 President's Cup team last year.
Let's bet on that one off camera.
They almost pulled off a big upset over George Wilkinson and your partner on Saturday, Max Lepevet. But we'll see. Okay, so let's move along to the 16s. We have the winner of the Bonji Miller Albright Smith match versus Flip Goodspeed and Rob Bacher, the #1 seeds.
Yeah.
Interesting to note that the last two times, to the best of my knowledge, that Jerry's been on the court with Flip were two very memorable matches. First time was the 7-6 in the third match at Rochester, where they caused Flip and Scott to miss their award ceremony.
Yes.
And then obviously again the 2010 national final, where Jerry was playing with someone other than Leonard Jonassen named Johan Durant.
Yeah.
And they dismantled them the last two sets.
Both matches 3-setters.
Both matches 3-setters.
One was a quarterfinal.
Quarterfinals, 2008 Nationals at Rochester.
In Philly.
Yep.
Goodspeed and Bacher.
Hard not to pick them.
Yeah.
Okay, next 6.
Although I picked before Bonji and Miller to beat
You did.
Albrights. I still pick Goodspeed and Bacher.
Either way, you have to pick Goodspeed and Bacher. Okay, next one is a real interesting matchup. Peter Burke and Sharani Barnes versus Chris Gambino and Alex Benchila.
I think that if that match finishes by Sunday at 7 p.m., the tournament will be able to finish this weekend. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. You might have to resume another weekend. That's going to be a long match.
Well, you got to think those teams have played, or at least those guys have played a lot of paddle together. Alex obviously used to play with Peter Burke, so they're very familiar with each other's games.
Geroni's very crafty.
Very crafty.
Smart player.
Chris is clearly the future of the game, some might say.
The future of the game.
Chris is clearly the best player on the court. I mean, ultimately, I think you have to go with Gambino and Benchila in that match.
I would like to agree with that, but I will disagree with that. I think that Alex doesn't like playing the slow style that Berka can play, and they will give him a headache. I mean, I will not pick a team here. It's a hard pick.
It's virtually a toss-up match. I
mean, if you ask me who I like as a team, which team I like the most of the two, of course I like Alex and Gambino. They have more variety. Peter and Geroni can play slow, but it's not. I mean, I don't like to watch that style. It's very effective. I mean, Peter is an amazing player. He has great results, but that's not a style I like.
Well, I know that the winner plays probably Goodspeed and Bacher, and I know Goodspeed and Bacher will be rooting for Gambino and Benchila because they already played Barnes and Burke at Charities, and they don't want to play him again.
Yeah, that's true. That was a long match, a 3.5 hour long match.
Lobfest.
That actually Goodspeed
thought he lost, hit the ball over the fence. Yeah. Rob said, hey, Flip, we didn't lose, got a new ball. They came back and they won the match.
Do you think that getting the new ball there helped Bacher and
That's what they said. Rob said that it definitely changed the momentum.
I think that it does change, not the momentum, but it changes the way the game is being played, because once you're late in a set, the ball just loses all the fuss, so the ball doesn't grab as much spin. There, I think that Bacher can spin the ball very well, and that gives them a big advantage.
Although, in fairness, I think that match was played with the Wilson ball, which never seems to lose its flocking, but you never quite know how it's going to play either.
But it's, yeah, okay. I can't disagree with that.
Okay, next match is your round of 16. Adam Morgan, Monty's nemesis, and Paget Neve versus you and the French sensation.
That's going to be a good match. I mean, I played Paget and Adam last year with Alex at, I think it was the quarters in Hinsdale, and it was Alex and I happened to play very well. But I know Paget. I played against Paget a couple of times. He's a very good player, very steady,
solid,
steady, solid player. And Adam, I played against him a couple of times as well. I played him in the round of 16 in the mixed nationals. He's a good player, fast, nice shots. I just want to see how they're playing. I know that now they had a good result. They got to the final in Hinsdale this year.
Yep.
So they must be playing better. So it will be a good match. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll get there first.
Okay. Next match was the winner of a match we discussed earlier, which is Tommy Croker against Mike Cochran and Scott Estes in the 16s.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy...
Croker and Trevor Spracklin, obviously.
Yeah. I will have to give the edge to Cochran and Estes because they're more experienced paddle players, even though Tommy has been playing for a while now, and Trevor too. But Trevor and Tommy, I think that one thing they struggle with is adjusting. They play one way, that is bang, 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 bang paddle. And they will have a hard time slowing down. And sometimes against Cochran Estes, you have to slow the game down a little bit because Mike likes to play fast, likes the fast pace. He hits some amazing shots, and Scott can play both styles. So their ability of adjusting is going to benefit them, I think.
Yeah. The infamous George Wilkinson and Marco Grangero versus John Noble and Mike Raleigh.
I mean, Marco and George are playing pretty well. Hard not to pick them.
They're playing terrific paddle,
I
agree.
Very, very well.
Next match that we're going to look at is Mike Marino and Dane Schmigdal, and from Chicago, against Karana Wagner.
Karana Wagner won Rochester. I know it wasn't a super deep event, but
beat Steve DeRose in the finals.
Steve DeRose and Mark Rupert in the final. That's a very solid team. Good win for them. They also beat, didn't they beat Mick Irdoya and Mark Innes.
Like one in love or something.
So that talks a lot of good things about that team. I think that it's going to be an interesting match because Marino and Schmidtgold are a very experienced team. They can adjust as well. Marino, I think, and we discussed this before off camera, that we see that Marino kind of lost his willing of grinding on the court and playing the long points that he used to play. That might affect him. Hopefully he'll go back to those golden years this weekend and he'll play again that solid game that he used to play.
So who are we picking there?
I would just have to go with Marino Schmidtgold just because of their experience.
Okay. Next match is Baxter Heath versus Gart Williams. Gart Williams, the winners in Milwaukee earlier in the season, kind of out of nowhere. How do you see that match unfolding?
I just love that match. I think that they're all for young players. I like the style they play, very fast paddle. That said, Heath and Baxter, I think they have a little more of experience. Although Williams, very good, a very good paddle player, very good. He's not too known around the paddle circuit, but he's a very good player. Adam Gart, we play him a couple of years ago. He was starting. I'm looking forward to hopefully watching that match if I'm off court.
Okay. Next match, final 16, is the winner of the Witskin Engel McInerney Rogers match versus Nathan Lefevre and Anthony Casamano. Nathan and Anthony have converged from their separate coasts, and Nathan's playing the 90s tomorrow, so he should be fresh for Saturday, get some edge to
And
this game.
I think that is going to make a big difference this weekend. Him playing tomorrow is going to give him a little more paddle shape for the weekend, even though he's going to be playing at a different level. He's playing with a lefty. Vince Prop is a lefty. Anthony is a lefty, so he picked his partner right.
I think that was only because Heather was unavailable.
But I don't think Heather would qualify to the 90s.
You're probably right.
Yeah. But it's going to be different, but he's gonna get to hit a lot of return of serves. He's going to get to hit a lot of overheads. He's going to get to practice a lot of his shots, and that's going to make a difference in the weekend. I will pick Anthony and Nathan in that match.
Impossible not to. Okay, so now moving on to the quarters. We have the winner of the Gambino match playing against Goodspeed and Bacher. So you want to talk about...
Well, you're
a lot of these tough matches. So Barnes Burka versus Benchila and Gambino obviously is a very tough call.
I think, again, it's all about matchups. I think that if Gambino and Benchila beat Burka and Barnes, they have a chance at Goodspeed and Bacher. Just because I remember a couple of years ago, Alex and I played against Rob Bacher, and I think it was Thaddeus Reed here in the Midwesterns too. And Rob didn't like playing Alex much, and Alex liked playing Rob a lot. I know it was a couple of years ago. Rob is a much better player now, but still, sometimes those results stay in your memory and they get you thinking in the middle of the match.
Well, as you say, it's all about matchups. So one of the interesting things here is the matchups of these two different matchups. Goodspeed Bacher, as we talked about earlier, had the long match with Barnes and Burke at Charities, and then Gambino playing with a different lefty, although they're both Alex and Drew Broderick are lefties.
Except that one doesn't fault as much.
One definitely doesn't fault as much. Played in the semifinals and nationals. So all four of those guys are semifinalists and nationals, and three of them were on the same court last year, the different one than you were on. So ultimately, who are you picking?
Again, it's all about matchups. If Gambino and Alex make it to the semis,
quarters, make it through to the score?
Make it through the quarters, I will pick them. I think they can beat Goodspeed and Bacher.
You at all worried about conditioning for Chris? I mean, it's going to be a cold day tomorrow. A lot of energy is going to be lost through.
Yeah, but like
Saturday.
we discussed, I mean, the lobbing game on cold condition it benefits the hard-hitting teams. A short lob, Alex can put the ball away. He has good overheads. So I think if they make it through, they can beat Goodspeed and Bacher. That said, if Geroni and Burka make it through, that's going to be a long match, another long match. So I would pick Goodspeed and Bacher in that matchup.
Okay, next quarterfinal is again a rematch of the Charities quarterfinal that you and Max Le Pivet won over Mike Cochran and Scott Estes. So I'm going to say I'm picking you guys.
Okay, look,
How
I
do
mean,
you see that match?
yeah, you know, I never pick myself.
That's why I do it.
Okay, but it depends how we wake up that day. I mean, Mike can have an amazing day, and it's going to be very hard to beat him. Scott against us in Chicago served amazingly well, and you said it was one of the best serving matches you seen him play.
Anybody play?
I think that I didn't play that well. I was very exhausted. In the first set, I could barely move. I played a bad set. And then I got a second air. I started playing better. Max started playing much better in the second and third set. So it all depends who's playing better.
They kind of went away in that match, too,
they
which
also
is
went
unusual
away
for them.
So it's not that I'm not picking myself because I want to be nice and in front of a camera and people are watching this.
You're rarely nice. That's not an issue.
Yeah, I'm never nice. But the truth is, it's going to be an interesting match. I mean, of course, I would love to win. It's going to be I think it's going to be a good match. A lot of good points. The cold weather could affect, definitely. So we'll see, but I would love to win.
Well, this is a big match for those guys because they're defending a lot of points. They were finalists here last year. They lost a bunch of points at Charities this year. So I think it matches, obviously more pressure on them. You guys are not a normal team. You're not playing for ranking quite as much as they are, spotted nationals, so that may play a factor. Next match is Wilkinson Grangero versus Corona Wagner. Think those guys any shot against George and Marco?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that George and Marco don't know them. They might go on the court thinking that, okay, we don't know these guys. Let's say we can play loose, and then all of a sudden, you know, these guys play fast. All of a sudden, they could be down, and it's hard to catch up. So they could give him a headache, although I would still pick George and Marco. They're playing great. They're playing very well.
Me too. Last quarterfinal, Nathan and Kazi versus the winner of the Gart Baxter match.
Nathan and Kazi, I mean, I would pick them, but the thing is, after the surprising loss against Hume Crocker at Croker, I don't want to be corrected, you know, by people.
Hashtag Juan is almost never wrong.
I'm almost never wrong. So after their loss against Croker and Hume, is much harder to actually pick them, you know, just by their names. I think
that's going to be a tough match. I could see anybody coming out. I could see Baxter and Heath coming out of there.
Yeah.
I could see Garton Williams.
Yeah.
Obviously, I could see Nathan and Kazi.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the semis now. Assuming you guys pull it out, we have the winner of your match versus the winner of the Goodspeed Bacher match.
Well, the truth is, or Cochrane Estes. I mean, the four teams.
Winner of your match.
What I have to say is that whoever comes, I mean, that semifinal is a toss-up. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. It just depends how you wake up that morning. I think at any team, they're all good matchups. If you think about it, Goodspeed and Bacher against us could be a good matchup. You know, different styles, but great matchup. Or against Cochrane Estes. I mean, how many times did Cochrane Estes play Goodspeed? 100 times. Yeah. So they know each other very well. Gambino and Alex. I used to play with Alex. You know, I like playing against him. I like the way he plays. But I'm not.
The way he plays when you play against him.
I like his style. We did have some differences on the court playing together. One or two. But I overall like his style of play. Gambino is an amazing player. I think I matched up very well with Gambino when I was playing with Leonard. I don't know how that will be playing with Max. We'll see. But Cochrane Estes, I think Cochrane Estes match up very well against Alex. We beat them with Alex once, but then we lost a couple of times. It was not even close.
Nathan and Scott pounded you guys one year in the quarters at Sound Shore.
That's also very true. So a lot of a lot of good matchups there. One thing that I want to say, I don't know who's going to play the ad there, because Alex likes playing the ad. Having a lefty on the ad could be a different look for a lot of teams, even though Chris is used to playing with a lefty on the ad. But Drew is more consistent. He won't go for as many shots as Alex would go. And Drew is a little faster on the court. So I think that Gambino will have to change his game style. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how tomorrow goes.
One of the interesting things
Or
about
Friday,
the weekend.
or Saturday.
One of the interesting things about the weekend is you're starting to see the finish line of nationals coming along, which is 2 months away, and the top 4 seeds are all vying for pretty much the last 2 seeds, the 3rd and the 4th spot at nationals, along with potentially you and Leonard. So the points tomorrow, I mean, it's really important as we close in on nationals and where people are seated, because it makes a big difference where you are. I mean, if you get stuck in that 7th slot, and then you get a chance of playing Parsons Durant in the quarters, not a place you want to be. Although some would argue that's the place to beat Mark and Johan.
Yes, I would agree, and I said that. I mean, playing them in the quarters at night, where we all know by now that Johan struggles with the lights, although with the new eye black style that they brought to the sport, and I actually happened to copy it. So thank you, Johan and Mark. That actually helped me big time. Still, is the last match of the Saturday. I think that's the spot. A lot of players will have a better chance at beating them. Okay, so second semi, we both have Marco and George in there. Yes. Who they're playing remains to be seen. You have the whole Nathan Kazi, matchup down there with Gart, Williams, and Baxter and Heath. And I think that George and Marco, I will pick them against any team to make it through, against any team, except for Nathan and Kazi. Why? Because again, they are experienced players. They might be able to adapt. I still think that George and Marco are favorites. However, it's not that easy to pick them if they're playing against Anthony and Nathan. Yeah, I got to pick George and Marco also. Those guys have played exceptionally well. George has volleyed just extremely well this year. I mean, to me, the turning point for those guys, ironically enough, was the match they lost to you and Max at Chicago, which I think is going to be the match we sit and watch, or I sit and watch and talk about on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So moving on to the finals with all our moving parts. Yeah. I guess we both have George and Marco in the finals, and we think it's going to be either Banchila or Gambino or Goodspeed or Baca or you or Cochran Estes. Again, it's matchups. It's matchups in the final. I hate to repeat that, and it's not that I don't want to pick a team. I think it's all matchups. Well, I'm picking you guys to play them in the finals. Well, thank you. And more because of Max, actually. I know that. I mean, of course. We'll see. We'll see. We had good success. We played really badly the second set and half of the third set. And then we started playing well again. But those guys are playing very well. I mean, I like playing those guys. We're good friends and we play a lot together. Against the other teams, I will have to see. Against Goodspeed and Backer. Well, the interesting thing that jumps out at me is, while George and Marco, this is their second consecutive year solidly in the top 10, I can't think of too many matches they played against Cochran Estes. I mean, Goodspeed and Bacher obviously aren't on the East Coast very much. They've obviously played you guys a bunch of times, but have they played any of those other guys at all, Banchila and Gambino? I guess George and Marco beat Drew and Chris last year in the quarters of Atlantic, so they've got some success there. 2 seasons ago. Yeah, almost. 2 seasons ago, yeah. So we'll see, but I think this tournament is stacked. A lot of great teams. Very strong tournament. I think it's a minimum of a 3-2-5. It's stronger than last year. Well, you got a lot more East Coast teams here. A lot stronger than last year. So I'm looking forward to a great weekend, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. Well, the only question I would ask, and I will ask Mark Kebe this question when I see him, is anybody ever won the 90s and the Open in the same year? I don't know. Let's hope that happens, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. Okay, well, especially because I have to carry you and Max. Max weighs a lot less than I do. Oh, well, yeah. Okay, so that concludes our wrap-up for Cincinnati. We'll be right back with Longmeadow.
Okay, Juan, so in addition to the Midwesterns, this weekend is the Western New Englands, run by Jeff Morneau, who does a terrific job up there. I know you and I have played that tournament several times in the past and missed being there. The draw has not been released as of our recording, but we do have the potential quarterfinal matchups. So let's go on the assumption that the top seeds will make the quarters. Top of the draw, we have the Swedes, Sebastian Bredberg and Martin Bostrom, playing Javi Ferran-Kranvidter and Andrea Bonfigli. How do you see that match?
I think that Sebastian and Martin will win the match. Javi is playing amazing paddle. I'm playing with him in the Premier League as my partner, and he's been the best player on the court in the last two matches. We beat Parsons and Stulak a couple of weeks ago, and then last weekend we beat Andrea and we beat Marco. But he's been the best player on the court the last two matches, and he's playing great. However, I think that the weakest player on that court is Andrea, and he's one of my favorite guys out there.
Wonderful
he's
guy.
an amazing guy, but I think he's going to be the weakest link in the match. Plus, one thing that we discussed this already, and I also told Javi, I mean, I think he's plays much better when he's the
support guy.
When he's the support guy, when he feels like he has to do too much, he starts making some mistakes. So I think that Martin and Sebastian will explode that.
Okay, next semifinal is Mark Innes, back from South Africa, and Mick Erdoya, playing against Anton Mavrin and Patricio Misatrano. What do you see here?
Patricio and Anton.
Now, they played a real good match at Sound Shore, which Patricio and Anton won 6-4 in the third, in a real tight one.
Yeah, but that one, if you asked me before the tournament who was going to win, I think, I don't know who I picked in that match, but I could have said that it was close, it was going to be close. This time I think it's not going to be close. I think that Mick came back from a long trip too. He hasn't been playing much.
As did Mark.
And Mark too. So I think their timing is going to be off, while Patricio and Anton have been playing a little bit more. They had a good win against Corey and Max in the Premier League last Sunday. So I have to pick them.
Okay, next semifinal is Mark Parsons.
No, but you're talking about this, what about the quarter?
I'm sorry, next quarterfinal is Mark Parsons and the mental giant Brian O'Connor versus Mike Stulak and Scott Kaler.
That's going to be fun to watch because they're two
of Parsons' ex-partners.
Former partners for Mark.
Former national champions.
Yeah, so Mike is going to be on the other side with Scott. I think if the mental giant brings his game,
which he did in Long Island, making the quarters,
I think they're going to win the match. Mark is clearly the best player on the court. However, very differently than when Mark plays with Johan, that Johan can spin the overheads a lot. I wonder who's going to take all the overheads. Plus the permanent eye formation that he usually tries with Johan, that Johan closes the net and likes to volley behind. That is not happening with Brian because Brian likes to turn and get hits in the butt.
He is very good at getting hit in the butt.
He gets hit more than anybody else I know.
Do you guys, the cage fighters, drill getting hit in the butt?
We
like
actually
that?
drill sometimes, and I actually try to tell him not to turn. But like I said, I try. It's impossible to make him not turn.
Okay, so the last quarterfinal is Johan Durant and Jeff Morneau, the tournament director. Pretty clever way to run a tournament, get Johan to be your partner. Playing against Jim Lipinski and Thomas Delifte. Those guys have any shot at them?
Well, Thomas and Jim are good players, but I'm sorry, no shot.
Okay.
No shot.
I agree. So, first semifinal, Bostrom Bredberg, Mavrin Misatrano, rematch of a terrific round of 32 last year at Short Hills. Who do you like?
Sebastian and Martin in that one. I think that I don't know. I saw Anton during the holidays, and I saw him with a little extra weight. So I think that by the fourth match in the day, he's gonna be a little tired, unless he gets on the treadmill today and tomorrow and he loses a couple of pounds.
And we should note that today is also Anton's birthday.
Happy birthday, Anton!
So
by the
happy
way.
birthday, Anton!
So you're gonna eat a lot of cake. I don't see you losing any pounds between today and Saturday.
So Bostrom Bredberg into the finals.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have the delicious matchup of the two dominant players in the sport right now, Parsons and Durant, obviously on opposite sides of the net. How do you see that one unfolding?
It all depends
On the mental
on
giant?
the mental giant. It's always about the mental giant.
You know, Brian plays his best paddle with Mark. He
Yeah.
plays the deuce side, obviously. He's got his backhand in the middle, which he loves to hit. They came a whisper away from making semis and nationals in
I think
Cincinnati.
that Mark has the best return in the game. Mark rarely misses returns, and that could give him a chance to take the net. But if the return game is off, I will give Johan and Jeff the edge. That said, I will give him the edge anyways, because they can also, Jeff can adapt very well to his partners. I mean, he played with Johan at the Patterson Open last year. They beat me and Leonard. Then I played with Anton at the Lehigh against them. We lost in a third setter.
And before that, he made the finals of Short Hills with Drew.
So he adapts very well to his partner. He's a great player. So it's more about those two guys than Parsons and Duran. It's more about Jeff and Brian, how they play their role on the court. I would pick Jeff and Johan
Going away from the mental giant?
this time, and I feel terrible. And I was just texting him with him. He's trying to sell me some insurance policy, and we're meeting this week, so I know he's gonna my monthly payment probably will go up a little bit.
Okay, well, that should be a fun match. I think it's a toss-up. I could really see that match going in any way, and especially in the cold weather. Johan gets a little impatient in the backcourt because Mark never gets impatient. I mean, Mark will play whatever needs to be done, and Mark's got a great ability to kind of figure out what's going on out there and figure out a way to win.
Who's your pick?
I'm going with the mental giant.
Okay, so you just gave all the credit to Parsons, and all of a sudden you say you're going with the mental giant.
Well, clearly, the mental giant's going to determine whether they win or they lose.
Okay.
Parsons
Good.
will figure it out. The question is, can the mental giant make it happen?
Okay, Brian, officially is picking you. I'm not.
Best Brian in the sport.
Okay.
Finals. Bostrom Bredberg
Whoever
versus
wins the semis between Johan Morneau and Parsons and Brian O'Connor I think will win the tournament. Although if Parsons and Brian happen to win that semifinal, the final is gonna be a little more challenging than if Johan and Jeff win. I mean, if Johan and Jeff make it through, I think they will.
You know, to me, we've talked about this before, but Bostrom Bredberg go as far as Martin's feet are going to take him. Martin's kind of rededicated himself to getting in shape after Sound Shore. We'll see how that goes. I know she got back from a week at home.
Plus, I don't know if you heard, but Florentina is back from her long European trip.
Temporarily back. She's leaving again.
Well, but she's probably making him do a lot of chores at home and all that.
It's amazing that Martin got out for the weekend with Florentina back.
Unbelievable.
So you think that they're losing in the finals to either team?
Yeah, I would love them to win because I think they're the future of the game, and I really like them as people and as players, but I don't think they have the firepower to beat any of the other two teams.
Well, hard to pick them against either Parsons or Durant, but would not surprise me. I could definitely see them winning that match.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
Okay, well, we won't.
Okay.
We'll be in Cincinnati, but we'll hear about it.
Okay, well, I would love to see the results in the draw then.
That we'll hear.
Okay.
And that finishes our Long Meadow wrap-up. And that's a wrap for our show today. So thanks for joining us.